If you're able to revive anyone in your life, do you think it'll be worth it? Do you think that it will be worth you giving that person life again? Maybe in the case of, well, I can spend time with that person again. We can act like your death's never happened and we can just go on and to continue our friendship, our relationship, mutual relationship, whatever kind of relationship we can have with each other. Or you think it's actually not worth it, you'll consider yourself a selfish person. That is a question that I came across and formed in my head when I just got finished watching this Netflix series anime called The Summer Hikaru Died. A Summer Hikaru Died came out in 2025. Before I even started watching this show, I was trying to guess what this show is about based on the title. And when I first read the title, I was thinking maybe it was a case of where, this Hikaru guy, he gets diagnosed with a very severe diagnosis. By the end of the summer, the doctor predicts that Hikaru is going to die. So Hikaru and his friend, they're going to meet up with their friends. They're going to meet up with their family members. They're going to spend time with each other until the inevitable happens. Boy, I couldn't be more wrong. The first episode with opening scenes, it starts off with the two main characters of the show, obviously Hikaru and Yoshiki. Yoshiki and Hikaru, they were sitting outside and they were just talking about stuff that friends talk about. And then moments later, Yoshiki asks Hikaru this question. And he asks him, "You not the real Hikaru, are you?" And next thing you know, we just seen Hikaru turn into this mutant level monster that randomly seemed very emotional. After that, he hugged Yoshiki and he was just pleading to him, saying, "Please don't tell anyone. I don't want to have to kill you." Yoshiki accepted that and he said, "You know what? You're Hikaru." Even though deep down he know he's actually not Hikaru. So now Yoshiki spent this entire season battling all sorts of emotions. He's battling grief, he's battling denial, he's battling acceptance, pretty much all forms of emotion. Because can you just imagine that you in a situation to where you feel deep down that your friend is not actually your friend? He's actually a monster that's end up taking over your friend's body, especially his dead body. Yes, dead body, and I'm gonna get to that in a second. Now, before that, we get to the point to when the true opening scene is when Yoshiki was actually looking for Hikaru when he was somewhere in the mountains being lost. Kept looking for him, kept looking for him. He couldn't find him until he eventually did. But Hikaru was actually lying down on the ground. He was just lying there. He was pretty much dead. He wasn't moving. He felt his body and it was cold. And when we get to that situation, we all know what time it is. Fast forward to a few episodes later, like I say, Yoshi Keys is there constantly wanting to both accept the fact that that's not Hikaru, but also deny the fact that that's not Hikaru. You get what I'm saying? Like he really tries to mimic his mind and he's trying to psych himself, like I was want to say, tried to psych himself into believing that this is Hikaru and this is my friend and I always want to be beside him and I don't want to leave him. You know what I'm saying? And on the other side, he's thinking, well, no, I saw what I saw. Like that ain't actually Hikaru. A monster went inside of Hikaru, and this ain't actually my friend. This is just somebody that just took over his body and basically mimicking everything about him. He's mimicking his memories, he's mimicking his voice, his tactics, he's everything that he knew about Hikaru. This monster just displaying it. So that would lead us to this whole emphasis around the place that was living in was cursed and all these entities and all these spirits from way past even go as late as the 1500s that just always hovered around the village. And these are the things that are pretty much going to be prominent throughout this entire season. Now, they did have a friend group and one of the friends go by this girl named Asako. And Asako, as we seen from this moment to when I wanted to highlight one of the episodes to when he wanted to go with Hikaru to get some ice cream. And this was after the friend group was playing with fireworks at night. And then when that moment happened, I knew deep down that she was going to ask Hikaru the hard, tough question. And which she did, basically asking her, "What are you?" Because she felt deep down that that wasn't actually Hikaru. And we all know, for those who've seen it, Hikaru turns around, he freaks out saying, "How does she know? How does she know? How does she know?" And he was close to actually trying to kill her because she knew his true identity. And then we get to see when Yoshiki stops him in the act, and then Asako passes out, this, that, and the third. Coming to find out that ever since Asako was a little kid, she was able to hear sounds that these entities was making. And we get to that point, and then when she was a little kid, she was riding around in one of the things that be in the playgrounds that shaped like animals that had the springs at the bottom. I forgot what the name of them called. And she was with a grandma, and she was talking about the fact that she's able to hear the entities come around, but the grandma also is able to see them as well, and she can pretty much see them very clearly. To me, that was one of my favorite episodes if I had to talk about it because of the fact that there's someone else who can see these as well, and it ain't just a person whose job is to see them. It was a person that was in their friend group that saw it as well, and that kind of was a pretty good twist on this. So now I want to talk about this person named Tanaka. Tanaka was he's pretty much an exorcist. I forgot what his actual title is, but he's pretty much an exorcist. He's always hovering around entities and spirits. That's kind of what company works for. It's what he does for a profession. And we see him all throughout the season trying to figure out what and why all this stuff is going on with these entities. And he always expecting that maybe this person took over a human form and trying to cosplay as a human, or what was the reason why everything transpired many years ago? Why was the village became one big village and then it turned into separate areas of a specific village? Later on in the season, we did get the answer to that, thankfully. But the fact is, he had his own kind of unorthodox way of trying to solve things. We see he was breaking windows to try to break in people's houses. He had his pet hamster with him that can pretty much sense entities as well. And surprisingly, the hamster was 12 years old, but a hamster's life expectancy is 2 or 3 years old, which I didn't really know about at the time. If that's true, that is pretty sad. I ain't gonna lie to you. That's wow. Um, but going back to what I was saying, so Tanaka played a huge factor in this season because obviously he's the guy that has to come down to the bottom of what was going on. Now, going back to Hinata and Yoshiki, another episode I wanted to highlight is the episode to when Yoshiki stabs Hikaru in his house. I don't know why would he do that. You could have did that at a park, somewhere under the bridge. You could have did it literally anywhere else, but he wanted to do it at his house. Thankfully, he didn't get caught because if he would have got caught by literally anyone in that house, I think the episode, not the episode, but I think the show would have turned upside down for that because now we got a whole nother element they probably would have tapped into. But Yoshiki wanted to do that and he actually did it. I'm sorry, because he tried to see if he can actually kill Hikaru or not. Well, it turns out he couldn't. So he's pretty much at the time was immortal. No one could kill him. Obviously, we saw that even when Tanaka used his sword to slice Hikaru's head off. When Hikaru and Yoshiki was at old man Takiba's house, and that whole aftermath, and Takiba got possessed and stuff, and we all pretty much saw that Hikaru's pretty much immortal right now. The only person that could stop Hikaru is Hikaru. That's why I ended up finding out later on. But at first, I'm thinking about this one lady that probably could have done something with it. And this one lady name was Ray. She was old, pretty much, I wouldn't say old, but she was like a middle-aged woman. You intentionally warned Yoshiki about you can't be too entangled with Hikaru because the more you be around him, the more you connect with him, the more entities you attract. And if you keep this prolonging on and on, then y'all two will end up being pretty much intertwined with each other. Y'all two gonna basically be the same kind of monster. She ended up being another main factor in this episode because she turns out to be a medium. She's basically like y'all know Momo's grandma from Donadon, right? Ray's basically Momo's grandma. If I had to explain it for people that haven't really watched the show but may have watched Donadon. But going back to this show, she ended up being a person that was able to help Hikaru and Yoshiki figure out all the in depths of the entities and everything that happened in this village, which would lead to me talking about the closing few episodes of this season. When they finally get to the point to when they sort of got close to figuring out everything as a whole, and we come to find out that all of this is pretty much based on the Ito's sin. The Ito sin, which built around Hikaba. His Hikaba last name is Ito, and Ito's sin is pretty much tied to this family for generations ago, which was kind of explained by his dad. The whole explanation was about it was the time to when the first Ito family generation. It was between Ito and the first generation. It was the story about the first generation of Ito, which their marriage was ended because the wife got sick and she ended up dying from that. But instead of just moving on from it and do the normal grieving patterns, he ended up severing the wife's head and going up to that mountain that was cursed. Basically, was offering the wife's head in order for the wife to be revived. Turns out the wife ended up being revived, but it also came at a huge cost. After that, 1/3 of the entire village miraculously died. Some died due to being hanged, others died because being killed by family members, other ones died because their head just miraculously disappeared. The wife was still being revived, but she was struggling every single day. She was just going through so much pain and torture. She was still an actual head. She didn't have her head connected to her body anymore. She was literally just a living head, which would lead us to the point to when they also figured out that the whole village was split up was intentionally shaped to be like a human being. And we saw all the torsos in one area, all the arms in another area, then all the legs in the other area. But the heads was missing. And then they fast forward, they found about Hikaru's place. I think it was a temple. And they found that all the heads that was there were actually made of wood because it was kind of got grossed out of the actual living human heads, so they just carved wooden heads of people to offer for sacrifices to this lord whose name was Nonoki. Everyone pretty much in the village was thinking that Nonoki was this god. Nonoki was this god that was the cause of all the entities and everything that was going on throughout the whole history of this village. So with me going back to that wife struggling due to the fact that the husband was pretty much doing that act to try to revive her. Even though he did get what he wanted, it came at a major cost. I wanted to close this out by talking about the final episode. Through the final episode, we get to Hikaru and Yoshiki being at the beach, and this was after the fact that Hikaru announces that he was going to go to the mountains because he was going to go back to the mountains because he believed that if he were to stay up there, then everything would pretty much be back to normal. No one would pretty much have to suffer. No one has to go through any type of terror or horror. And we get to see Yoshiki's reaction. He just freaking out because deep down, I feel like Yoshiki is believing that Hikaru is absolutely right. And in my opinion, Hikaru made the right call with that because Hikaru is a monster. Hikaru is not the actual Hikaru that Yoshiki grew up with, which is that little kid all the way to where they are now. A monster took over him. Hikaru was long gone, and we saw that whole clip to when Hikaru was in his coffin and all his friends was around him, mourning him. And I was going back to Yoshiki because even he knew because his deep conscious was telling him, hey, Hikaru is right. You're just being selfish all along. You're not doing this for the village. You ain't doing this for Hikaru. You're doing this for yourself. And that's why I asked y'all this question at the start of the video because reincarnation is not as great as what many people probably think it is. Not even the idea of it. The reason why I'm saying the idea of it is because people a lot of times like the idea of something, but they don't actually think about the circumstances. They don't think about what could be the aftermath. They don't really consider everything. They just stick to something that appeals them a lot to try to convince them that whatever decision they're making is justified. And that's how Yoshiki was feeling because he felt like all this stuff he did up to that moment was justified because, hey, this is for my friend. This is for the village. This is for protecting my family. This is for the friendship. This is for our friends. Deep down, he was being a selfish person because he won't be able to move on from it. If he was tied up to Hikaru, if he was once again, like Ray said, if they keep being entangled, they just gonna have a whole bunch of mishaps going on their way. I really like how they closed out this season with that because with both Hikaru and Yoshiki finally realizing and coming to a common ground, that would make this show a really good send off episode to me. That's what made it a really good send off episode for me. I really think that this show is really solid. So in conclusion, if you like psycho horror, if you like mystery, if you like watching emotional depth being showcased, and also you have a Netflix account because this is a Netflix series, I do recommend this show for you. I think this show is very solid. Even though if I did have to say one thing about it, you might think that stuff is like all over the place because I was kind of thinking that while I was enjoying the show, I was thinking maybe we see Yoshiki's emotion just kind of bouncing off the walls a whole lot. And some people might rock with that, some people may not, but overall, I think the show is pretty solid. I do recommend this show for y'all guys and girls out here who love those categories, as I mentioned earlier. So, with that being said, to those of you who watched the show yourselves, let me know your thoughts on it. Did you like the show? Did you not like the show? Give me a couple of reasons why. And I just wanted to share my experience with it. I binge watched it in one day. It only has 12 episodes in it. So this is an easy binge watching session for y'all out here that was looking to binge watch a new anime. So, with that being said, if you want to do all the stuff that every YouTuber say at the end of their videos, y'all can do that or not. Like I always say, y'all grown. Y'all can do whatever y'all want. With that being said, I will see y'all on the next one. Peace out, y'all.